Medicare for All seems to be catching more and more steam, more and more momentum. More and more Americans seem to be in favor of it. There have been a number of polls that show that the majority of Americans support Medicare for All, which is a single-payer healthcare system. In fact, during a recent town hall featuring Bernie Sanders, the audience seemed to really appreciate the idea of Medicare for All. Take a look.
This audience has a lot of Democrats in it. It has Republicans, independents, Democratic socialists, conservatives. I want to ask the audience a question. If you could raise your hand here, a show of hands of how many people get their insurance from work, private insurance right now. How many get it from private insurance? Okay, now of those, how many are willing to transition to what the senator says, a government-run system?
Later, it was pretty clear, the audience, every time Medicare for All was brought up, they were really excited about it. And so there are people working in the healthcare industry that are very much worried about it. And one of those people is David Wichmann, who is the CEO of UnitedHealth Group. And so he had a call with investors recently, and he apparently rarely discusses politics, according to CNBC, but he told investors on a post-earnings conference call that Medicare for All would, quote, surely jeopardize the relationship people have with their doctors, destabilize the nation's healthcare system, and limit the ability of clinicians to practice medicine at their best. Okay, so I want to stop for a second. One of the arguments that we keep seeing coming up over and over again when it comes to getting rid of private insurers is, oh my God, well, I'm gonna lose my private insurance. I like my private insurance. And I think people keep confusing that with their doctor, right? So people might really like their doctors. I've never really heard anyone say, you know what, I love my private insurance company. They've done a really great job at denying coverage every time I needed them to authorize something.
I like my insurance ID card. Yeah. I just don't wanna get a new one, I'm used to it.
Like people love their doctors, there's no question about that. And so if you have Medicare for All, you're not gonna lose access to your doctor. You're not gonna be, like, you're still gonna be able to see your doctor. It's just that you're gonna have a healthcare system that's not gonna deny you coverage. It's a single payer system. You're not gonna have to deal with the co-pays and the deductibles and all of that stuff.
Some of them have been lied to about what that kind of care is like in other countries that have these sorts of systems. They fundamentally don't believe that if they were to be switched to a national healthcare system, even if they accept that there are examples, they think that the examples are bad, that people are unhappy in Canada and the UK and other countries.
People have to wait forever to see a
doctor. Exactly,
doctor.
they believe a lot of things that aren't necessarily true, and they think, well, my system sucks, but I can go to a doctor, I guess.
But I would be bluntly honest, were I campaigning on this. Like, it will be a change, and some doctors will probably delve totally into the private healthcare industry, whatever that is, right? Which could still exist, right? Separate from that, some people will be so wealthy that they will think, I am not gonna worry about that. I'm not gonna go. I'm gonna give $20,000 a month to a doctor who will see me and my family whenever we want, and that's how we're gonna go through life. That already happens now, which is, I find super weird, but it does happen now. But we don't know, because we don't know if under Medicare for All, what the rate the government is gonna charge doctors and hospitals, and how much care is gonna cost. And so, you might pay less, you might pay more, you might lose your doctor, right? You get another doctor. It's entirely.
I mean, it really depends. I mean, if you happen to go to a doctor who refuses to get compensated by, government funds, then yeah, you'll lose access to your doctor. But my guess is most doctors are not willing to do that. I mean, how many insanely wealthy people are there who would just pay for everything?
I got you right. I just mean we don't. Because all the estimates we don't know the estimates on cost, because we don't know how many doctors are going to be available. More people will go to the doctor, and then it's a reasonable thing to say, do we have enough doctors for this? So maybe we're going to have to train more doctors, in which case, let's go. Great, we can solve that in America. All I mean to say is that it won't be the easiest thing in the world during that transition.
No, and I don't think
it is a major, major, major change of the way we would administer healthcare in America, which is overdue.
I don't think anyone is arguing that it's going to be an easy transition. In fact, Bernie himself, for anyone who's actually interested in reading his policy, doesn't believe that the transition is going to be easy. Which is why, let's say in a perfect world where we have President Bernie Sanders or a progressive president who believes in Medicare for all, and we have a Congress that's actually interested in passing legislation, and we pass Medicare for all, it would take 4 years for that transition to go through. So it's not like, all right, we passed Medicare for all on January 1st, that's it, it goes into effect. No, that transition period is gonna take 4 years. And
at least.
At least, and he's clear about that in the policy, in the legislation.
Right, and it may be that to get the votes, and I find it incredibly hard to believe that those votes will exist under President Sanders or any other president. I would love to be mistaken. But I mean, those are the kind of things you negotiate, all right? Not 4 years, 7 years. You know, that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen if grown-ups are allowed to debate how we go forward.
And also, I think the sorts of concerns you were expressing is why this is not, let's set up a brand new single-payer healthcare system from the ground up. It's let's expand something that's been functioning for a long time, that's very popular. Exactly. We just open it up to more people. It doesn't mean that there wouldn't be any consequences, but it is a little bit easier to predict exactly how things are going to go when you're expanding an existing service and an existing bureaucracy. Exactly,
and I think the analysis that we've seen in regard to how much it would cost doesn't factor in some of the things that I think would actually end up saving more money. So for instance, preventative care. Preventative care is much more affordable than treating someone who has an advanced illness. And so if more people are willing to go to the doctor for their annual checkup and they're not afraid of some surprise bill, then I think that we'd be able to catch illnesses quicker. People wouldn't wait until they're in the emergency room and it's incredibly expensive to treat, whatever ails them there. Those things aren't factored into the analysis.
I think, well, some of them are, and the fact is there are a number of things which would drive costs down and then other things which would drive costs up, and you hope that you come out at the down part, because we already spend a tremendous amount of money on healthcare, and Bernie is of the opinion, and reasonable people are disagreeing with it about that he thinks we'd spend even less. And some people would pay more in tax, many people would pay less, but nobody would pay a deductible and nobody would pay for health insurance. So.
Yeah. So let me give you some more arguments. And by the way, one of the reasons why I'm bringing this up is because it's important to know where the talking points and the line of attack come from. So another argument made by David Wichmann, again, the CEO of UnitedHealth Group, was, quote, and the inherent cost burden would surely have a severe impact on the economy and jobs, all without fundamentally increasing access to care. So whenever I hear access to care, all of us, we all have access to care. All of us can go to the doctor, but the question is, can we afford it? So that line always makes me a little skeptical.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lie. I mean, of course it's not. I mean, yes, you're right. He can say we all have access to care.
Right.
Drive into an emergency room, you have access to care. But that's not what we're talking about.
But I do agree with him on some level regarding how this would have an impact. First of all, on the economy, I think that it might even have a positive impact, because think of how many people might be willing to leave their place of employment to start a small business because they're not fearful about losing their health benefits.
Buy a car.
Right.
Right. By again, the thousands of ways that people can invest in the economy, because here's what's never going to happen. Nobody's ever going to go bankrupt because of health problems. And it's not just bankruptcy. What's the stat? It's the staggering number of the percentage of Americans that are a $2,000 bill away from
less, or even less. I
or
think
maybe it's less.
Or
a $500 bill, something like that. And it's a staggeringly high number that goes away. That goes away. So then you're like, great, let's go to dinner. Let's take the kids to Florida to stay somewhere cheap for a few days. We can spend the money because you've eliminated the fear that if something goes wrong, we're done.
Yeah, but one thing I do kind of agree with him on, and he doesn't elaborate, is what this would do to jobs. He just says jobs. It will affect some jobs, right? So the private healthcare industry, if you're employed in the private healthcare industry, you hate this. This is gonna affect your job.
Although we should bear in mind that some people like Bernie Sanders are talking about transitioning to Medicare for all and eliminating private health insurance. Others, including those running for president, would maintain private health insurance as an alternative.
Yes.
So looking carefully, don't just assume everybody means the same thing when they say Medicare for all. The only other thing I wanted to say was, you provided an article on this from CNBC, and the headline is, UnitedHealth warns Medicare for all would destabilize healthcare. I just feel like the writer does say at the bottom, single payer healthcare, despite all of this, is becoming more popular, tries to be a little bit balanced, but what a boring headline. What a boring article to write.
Well, I don't even think it's meant to be boring.
I would write, would destabilize healthcare, because of course he does. It's his job to say that. It's his job to not have his job and his company be eliminated.
Yeah.
It's effectively a meaningless talking point. Why? What is he gonna? Here's a good article. UnitedHealth warns Medicare for all. Actually sounds good. No, they're not gonna write that. That's never gonna get written. So this is just a boring, obvious thing. You could have dispatches from every CO in the country, and you could just make up your CNBC front page every single day. Like national pork lobbyist warns vegetarianism bad for bacon. Right. Yeah, it is, but there's still a case to be made.
Bank of America warns elimination of banking fees would sink economy. Right.
Oh my God! Did you read the front page of CNBC?
Wow. That $3.75 I pay every time I take out a couple $100. That's saving America. Thank goodness. Yeah. I read where. Yeah.
Such obvious stuff.
Okay, but I do want to actually read the poll that was mentioned in this CNBC article. So according to a survey from the Kaiser Family Foundation, last month, 56% of respondents supported a national health plan in which all Americans would get insurance from a single government plan versus 39% who said they oppose it. So there still is, the majority of voters who support this type of system. We'll see where this all goes. I mean, look, we're so early. I don't even know if we're even considered in the election cycle yet. Are we?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we are.
Okay,
sure.
fine.
We shouldn't be,
so
but
early.
we are.
It's April. There's a debate in June.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But the point that I wanted to make was it's still super early. So I'm excited about where things are right now. Bernie Sanders is polling really well. You see a number of candidates who are really taking on the progressive label, even if they're maybe not so progressive, because the Democratic Party has in some ways moved to the left. But what's promising to me is the support that we're seeing for changing the healthcare system that we have now.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.